Hey guys, this is Mario coming at you with another video. Sorry about my throat. This video is a dual video response. It's initially, and yes, before I say anything, yes, that is my computer screen that you see reflected in my glasses. Anyway, as I was saying, this is a video response to both Michael King and Matt, aka Rambo Raff. Because I saw that Matt did a video like this a couple days ago. I haven't watched it all because I haven't had about over an hour and a half to just sit around and watch a video. I'll probably get to it probably this weekend or maybe during the week in between classes when I'll have plenty of time. But I did watch Michael King just now, and it got me inspired to do a quick little video like this. Now, like Michael, I'm only doing 10 films because I could list a bunch of movies that I think are underrated, which maybe one day I will do a video and then have it be a response to this one, but I decided to just do 10 like he did. Now, these films are either underrated because they were hated at the time and maybe they are starting to get their audience as time has gone by. Maybe some people still hate them today. Maybe people hate them in retrospect because of a movie that came afterwards that screwed the film up or something. But in movies that it just seems either when they get talked, some of them when they get talked about, a lot of times I see that people hate them for some reason. Or they hate them, and it's like it seems that their reasons for hating the movie seems to come out of their ass. It's just for various reasons. Now, just to note that except for the last one, these are in no particular order probably. Number 10. The reason I put this one at the bottom, actually let's check that there, and this is probably about in order except for the first one and this one. The reason I put this one is that this is a film that only like a couple people hated it when it first came out. People seem to have hated it throughout its entire life, I should say, but it's hard to tell if they hated it more when it came out or if people are actually starting to like it more. I've liked it since it came out, but I still say the movie, throughout its whole life I've said the movie's had its problems, but I've noticed them more. And in retrospect, compared to the sequels this movie has gotten, I think this is probably the best of the films in the series, and of course we're getting another sequel this year, which I think that should probably give a hint of what it is. Because for me, out of all the films, this is the closest to capturing the spirit of the original games. And that, of course, is the 2002 film Resident Evil. I know my buddy Effrey doesn't like it because of the pacing and stuff. That's okay, but I don't remember what Matt's specific thoughts on it, but he's a fellow Resident Evil fan. I believe Michael King does like it, even though he says the games are better, if I remember right. But, like I said, to me, this is the closest to capturing the spirit. Because in retrospect, it's probably better that they did it this way. The only game characters, of course, were the creatures, the liquor, and of course the zombies and the Dobermans. We had original characters, but look what Anderson has done to the game characters since then. Second movie, Jill's in it, barely does anything. Third movie, Claire's in it, barely does anything. Fourth movie, excuse me. Chris and Claire in it, barely do anything. And the next movie, Ada's going to be in it in her Resident Evil 4 attire. Barely going to do anything. The only game character who seems to do something is Wesker. That's because he's the villain. So for me, they should have not used any of the game characters and should have just made its own separate universe using stuff from the games, like the creatures and the viruses and maybe some of the villains. But leave our main characters alone if you're going to use Alice. And also, I'm getting tired of Wild Stallions putting his wife in all of his movies. I mean, I know, like I said, with that Three Musketeer movie, it's probably gonna be a guilty pleasure when I see it. But just from the trailers, you put her in there just to give her some action work. Wild Stallions, no matter how many times you push your wife down our throats, it's not going to make her an action star. I think you're only doing it because she's pushing you down her throat. That's all. I have no ending for this, so I take a small bow. Now, number 9 is a film that it was kind of hated on by critics. I'm not going to go into it because I just reviewed it. But it seems to be getting its audience on DVD and Blu-ray, which is a good thing. And that, of course, is Cowboys and Aliens. I don't think I need to elaborate since I just reviewed it. Number 8 is a film that seemed to be getting its audience more now because it came out, the only critical appraisal it really got was one Academy Award nomination. Other than that, it was kind of lackluster. Barely made its budget, barely made money. Nobody seemed to talk about it, but as VHS releases and DVD releases, it seemed to be getting an audience. That, of course, is One of my favorite Disney movies, I'd probably put in my top 10 favorite Disney movies, Pete's Dragon. You guys remember last year during Oscar reviews, I reviewed it. You guys know that it's one of my, like I said, it's a childhood favorite. It's one of the films I can still watch to this day. Now, number 7, the reason it's on here is that at the time this first series of movies are coming out, it was overshadowed by the film that came before it, and for some reason by the film that came after it. Now, the first film, of course, was because nobody expected much from it, and then it was a hit. People liked it. The third film, it's because it was more mainstream and kid-friendly. And the film, of course, I'm talking about is Batman Returns. Now, I'm probably going to elaborate more on this movie when I review the films in a couple months, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but this is my favorite of all the Batman movies, counting the animated movies and the live-action ones. It's my favorite of them. That's right, I like it more than Burton's first Batman movie. Because for me, it has the same kind of tone that the first one has, but Burton has more creative control, so it's more of his own movie. So it's more kind of gothic in tone and a little bit dark, which I think fits Batman if you're going to have Burton do it. And also, the stuff with the villains getting more screen time and stuff, I don't mind that, but I'll go more into that when I review the film down the line. But it's a movie that, like I said, got overshadowed at the time it came out. People seem to like it more now than back then because critics bashed it, especially Siskel and Ebert, which I'll get to them when I review the movie. People complain about one scene where Batman kills the fat guy, which I'll get to that when I get down the line. And it seems to be getting an audience more now than it did before, which I'm happy to see that. But it's still not really much. It doesn't seem to be talked about as much as the first film or the third film, where they're negatively opposed. Now the next movie, this is one that's probably on my list and maybe like a couple of my buddies' lists. The reason I put it on the list is because it seems to be one of the more hated entries in this franchise, and which I can understand why, but at the time period it came out, it was trying something new. It was taking a risk, and it would have been interesting to see if they had continued on in this direction, how the series would have ended, but with what they did the next film, it doesn't bother me. It just in retrospect, it just stands out like a black sheep of this franchise. And the film I'm talking about is Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. You guys remember that a while ago, about over a year ago, I did that tribute to Tommy Jarvis. I used footage from this film because I don't mind this film. I do like the psychological angle, and I like how it culminates at the end. Of course, the hints that he might be the killer, and then of course the cliffhanger ending that's kind of discontinued in the next film makes you wonder if they reboot the sequel, making this Part 5 not even count in the timeline. It's an interesting thing. But I don't mind the kills and stuff. It's just, though, how they build it up and then you see the ending, you're like, that's the killer? Then how the heck did he survive? Blah, 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 blah. Stuff like that. With that stuff, I can't really defend because it is some of the nitpicks I have. But it's an enjoyable movie. For me, it's an enjoyable movie, and it has one of my favorite lines in the series. Down, motherfucker. Car's not working. I'm going to kick your ass. Kick your ass. And then, of course, that one guy with attitude problems who kills that kid over a candy bar. I just find that it's not funny. People have anger management issues, but this guy has seriously management issues. He kills the guy just because he told him he was out of line? What the hell? Then we never see that guy again. Anyway, enjoyable film. Number 5. Reason this movie is on the list because out of all the movies that Mel Brooks has done, this one is usually talked about the least of his comedies. Probably the one that's talked about the least of any of them is probably Life Stinks, because I haven't really heard much talk about that movie because it's one of his few non-comedy ones. But of his comedy ones, this and Silent Movie are probably the ones least talked about. But I think Silent Movie, it's hard to tell which one's talked about more. But this was the first one I saw a snippet of, and I have to say, I'd probably put in my top 5 Mel Brooks films. The movie, of course, is Dracula Dead and Loving It. I mean, it's the last movie he directed. It's probably his weakest entry when you compare it to films like Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, even History of the World Part 1. But I still find it funny how a lot of the spoofs of all the Dracula movies, even some small stuff. Oh my God, she's dead. No, she's alive. She is Nosferatu. She's Italian? I know, stuff like that. And then, of course, the blood. Oh my God, there's so much. There's a lot of gags in the movie that really do work, especially if you're familiar with Dracula and vampire lore, and specifically. So I consider it to be a very enjoyable film. It just seems that not that many people seem to talk about it. And I have been in a group of people watching this movie, and it does get laughs, a lot of laughs. So it is a film that seems to be getting its audience more now. I really do need to get it on DVD because it's one of the films of his I enjoy that I don't have on DVD. Because let's see, I have Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles on DVD. I have Spaceballs and Robin Hood Men in Tights on DVD, but I don't have this on DVD. Also don't have History of the World Part 1, which I gotta get that one on DVD, but this is the one out of those that seems to be a black sheep. Now the next four films, the last four films, two of them are from the 90s, two of them are from the 80s. And it goes 90s, 80s, oh, no. Hold on. Oh, I know there's a film I forgot, hold on. Okay, we're gonna make this a top 11 then. I'm probably gonna put the yeah, because there's a film I forgot, and I can't believe I forgot it. Anyway, it's not the next film, but the next film on the list is a film from the 90s that most of the reason that people seem to hate this movie is because the first movie, a lot of people think it should have been the only movie, and I can see why they would think that, because it does have an ending that you would think would be sequel proof. But for how they did the sequel, I go by the director's cut, aka the Renegade version, which I think that should tell you what movie I'm talking about. I buy that version more, but I do really want to see the original version of the film to compare and contrast. But the Renegade version, I don't mind. Of course, and that movie is Highlander 2. Now, like Alien 3, which is a film that'd probably be on an expanded version of this list, it had a rough production period, because remember when I did the special edition DVD review, I mentioned how the backers were messing with the production. They couldn't film one scene because of it. So the script and other stuff got manhandled a lot. So at first it's basically a clusterfuck of a movie. So with all that happened, I'm surprised that the Renegade version is as good as it is to me, and it is. I mean, we get Christopher Lambert back as Connor McLeod, and he does a magnificent job. And of course, Virginia Madsen is good in her performance. Sean Connery's good in the movie as well, even though it's kind of odd that they had to come up with some new stuff to bring him back, which doesn't bother me. They could have just had him be in a flashback scene of him of a specific scene of him training McLeod, and McLeod remember that. That would have been interesting. And then of course, why am I? Michael Ironside, there he goes. Michael Ironside is our main villain, General Katana. He works, and he's kind of over the top at parts, but it works because he's insane. He's clinically insane. I just know, hon. Doug, are you clinically insane? Stuff like that. So it works, and if you guys ever are thinking of getting the DVD, I suggest getting the Renegade version. I got mine off of Amazon. Now, the next movie is one from the 80s, and the next three are from the 80s. Now, this is a sequel like Highlander 2, kind of was unnecessary, but for what it is, I'd say it works. It's not it's a film that's starting to get its audience more now, but I've liked it ever since I was a kid. And I mentioned when I reviewed it a while ago during Monster Fest that I always thought it was an alien film for some reason. That, of course, is The Fly 2. A very enjoyable film, solid sequel. Like I said, one that didn't need to be made, but still pretty good. At times, it does kind of... Some people might think it's a rehash of the first one, but I don't see it. I mean, it's about Martin Brundle trying to finish what his father started, and then trying to figure out with the teleporters, and also trying to find a cure for himself, even though he's probably a little bit worse off at first, because he's aging faster than his father did, because he was born that way like a fly, and also... But when he's in his full form, he's a lot better off because he was born that way. The DNA, it's not like when you try to mute. It was like my X-Men analogy. Natural born mutants are gonna be better off than the force born mutants because the DNA structure will be more stable. And of course, the romance with the Daphne Zienga character, I didn't mind that. And of course our villain, a good allegory for corporate America, because it just seems that corporate America is like that at times, and especially nowadays. If you look at corporate America, especially with this SOPA shit they're trying to pass, and I actually saw a good art thing that kind of settled it up. Back in the writer's strike, they're like, oh no, we're not going to pay those writers a dime. Now they're using those same writers to say, well, we're going to attack pirates. These guys are not making any money. It's because of you, you fat-ass morons. And also, piracy wouldn't exist if you guys were producing quality stuff. That's a shot more at the movie producers than them, than anything else. But still, the way you guys have SOPA written, it's gonna, if they pass it, it's gonna be a bad Big Brother precedent. So I'm happy that I heard that Obama's gonna veto the bill. And if he does, and they try to pass it, they gotta get it 2/3 the second time. Because the first time, if I remember correctly, they only have to pass it by a 51% majority. That's if I remember right. Hope if that's the case, then if that's what they barely pass it by, they're gonna have to do some backdoor dealing to get that 2/3. And it has to be in both the House and the Senate, if I remember right. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Fly 2, a very entertaining film. Now, this next movie is a remake, and it's actually the only remake on this list, ironically. It's a film that came out in the 80s. When it first came out, fans of the original bashed it to hell. Nowadays, it's a film that seems to be getting more of its audience now. It's one of those remakes that happens with. I've always enjoyed it. It was the first entry in this series I saw. You guys remember it was my last film during Monster Fest. It's a film that I would get the DVD, but the DVD sucks. So I'm probably waiting. Hopefully if they ever do a special edition, they at least get some featurettes, like maybe talk with the actors, like what are their thoughts on the film in retrospect. Maybe a commentary with a couple of them. That'd be nice. That, of course, is The Blob. You guys remember my review of it, so I don't need to go into too much detail. Just a very enjoyable film, great practical effects, great direction, great acting. Now, number 2 is a film that came out near the ass end of the 80s. Now, the reason it seems to be underrated is because it was a film when a bunch of water films are coming out, and critics bashed it. But it seems to be getting more of an audience nowadays. And, of course, it was overshadowed by the big water film that year, The Abyss, by Jimmy Cammey. This, of course, is Leviathan. You guys remember my review from a while ago. It's a very entertaining film. It's basically what you get when you take The Thing and Alien, put them in the blender, and add an underwater theme in the mix. And that's not really necessarily a bad thing. It has great practical effects by Stan Winston Studios. Great acting by the cast of characters. I mean, Peter Weller's great as the lead. We got Daniel Stern supporting. He's just funny. And all the rest of the actors, they all do a great job. It's a film that I'd like to get the DVD of, but I think it also sucks like The Blob, which, that's true, that sucks. Why are all these great 80s films getting bullshit DVDs? As Arnold would say, it's bullshit! All of it! They're a bunch of girly men for releasing the DVDs like this. I will terminate them! Like I terminated the budget! You know, a little Robot Chicken reference. Now, the last film on this list is a film like the previous two. It got hated a lot by critics at the time it came out. Fans were mixed at the time, and they seem to still be mixed now, but it seems in retrospect a lot more fans are starting to like the movie. I've always liked it. It's my favorite entry in the series. Yes, I like it more than the first one, and the first one is Arnold! I think I just gave away what it is. It is Predator 2. No, I will not do Predator 2. I do not like turning my characters into villains. And I'm not going to be some madman who gets radiation sickness. I will terminate radiation sickness! Now, one of the biggest complaints I still constantly hear about this movie is Danny Glover. I mean, I like Danny Glover as an actor. I think he's good as an action lead in this movie. Now, a lot of people complain, oh, it's Danny Glover, he can't do action. There's no way he can do an action movie or any movie with action in it. Did you guys forget about the Lethal Weapon series? That's a cross-genre movie. It's comedy and action. Action. Granted, his character doesn't really do that much in the movie, but that's probably the reason he did Predator 2. I mean, in the behind-the-scenes stuff on the DVDs, he says that he could do a little bit more physical stuff in this movie. That's probably what drew him to the role, that he could do a little bit more physical stuff. And I buy him doing it. I buy him as a cop that is kind of, I wouldn't say renegade, but I would probably say hard-boiled, maybe not as much as Dirty Harry or Cobra. Which that's a film that would probably be on the expanded list. Why is it I forgot? I always remember these things for the lists right when it's too late. Why is that? Brain fart, but it's just, I buy him. It's, from the moment we see him, we can tell he's a badass. I mean, he sneaks behind the guys and kills them with shotguns after driving his car at him with no door on it. And the fact he gets into arguments with his superior officers, and also how he takes it to the Predator at the end. Okay, pussy face, it's your move. That's right, shit happens. And then, of course, serious balls to say what he does to all those Predators when they have him at gunpoint. Okay, who's next? It's like Goldberg busts through the wall. I'll help you. No one knows who you are yet. You're supposed to be in the NFL. Oh yeah. Backs up like the Kool-Aid Man and Family Guy. I couldn't resist, but it's a film, like I said, starting to get a bigger audience now, and I'm actually glad that they released a special edition DVD of it a couple years ago. I still got to get the special edition DVD of the first film, but the DVD of the second film was great. The only problem I have is there's no deleted scenes, and I know there are deleted scenes! Anyway, that's my brief list of underrated films. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I'll probably do a bigger list later on. And yes, I know that I said 2 reviews ago that I was going to be doing a 3rd review with Aliens, but I can't for the life of me remember what the movie was. I'll probably have to BS it. Because there's another movie, there's a movie over there I'll probably use as a backup one. But probably Sunday you'll probably see my first Oscar review up, so, or maybe Monday when I'm at school, whichever. Anyway guys, that concludes this vlog. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care.